The sun hadn't yet cracked the horizon when Jack Harper laced up his scuffed work boots. Their leather creased like the lines on his weathered hands. He stood on the sagging porch of his rented clapboard house in Cedar Hollow, a speck of a town where the air smelled of pine and secrets. The paint peeled in long, curling strips, and the steps groaned under his weight. But Jack didn't notice anymore. His heart was too heavy for such small complaints. Inside, his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, slept soundly, her soft breaths a fragile tether to the only world that still made sense. He shut the door with a gentleness that belied his calloused exterior, his breath fogging in the chilly dawn as he trudged to his rusted Chevy pickup. The engine sputtered, coughing like an old man, but it roared to life because, like Jack, it had no choice but to keep going. Jack wasn't a man who dwelled on feelings, but as he drove the winding roads to a roofing job 30 miles out, a familiar ache gnawed at his chest. It wasn't just the weight of bills piling up on the kitchen counter or the holes in Lily's sneakers he couldn't afford to replace. It was the photograph tucked into the truck's visor. His late wife, cradling newborn Lily, her smile as bright as a summer noon. 4 years had passed since cancer stole her, but the grief clung like damp earth, heavy and inescapable. Jack's jaw tightened as he forced his eyes to the road. One job at a time, one day at a time. That was how you survived when the world kept trying to break you. Cedar Hollow was the kind of place where everyone knew your story, or thought they did. Jack heard the whispers at the gas station, saw the pitying glances at the grocery store. Poor widower, they'd murmur. One sortie with their barns, raising that little girl all alone. He ignored them, focusing instead on Lily's chatter as they sat on their porch swing each evening, her voice a melody against the creak of warped wood. She'd talk about school, Cruddy, her friends, the stray cat she'd named Whiskers, while Jack patched old jackets or fixed broken tools. Those moments were his refuge, where the world felt small and safe, if only for an hour. One evening, as fireflies blinked in the dusk, Lily waved a crumpled flyer in his face, her hazel eyes wide with excitement. Daddy, look, the harvest fair's coming. There's games. Never Lira Shircha, or D Shirinaman, and a shooting contest. Can we go? Please, said Sir the pinch. Her voice was pure sunlight, and Jack's heart twisted. Money was tighter than a rusted bolt. Rent was due. The truck needed brakes, but the hope in her eyes was worth more than any paycheck. We'll go, Peanut, he said, ruffling her chestnut curls. She squealed, throwing her arms around him, and for a moment, the weight on his shoulders lifted. If a few bucks for cotton candy and a carousel ride could make her smile like that, he'd work double shifts to pay for it. The night before the fair, in Tomenwina, Jack sat at the kitchen table, his worn wallet open like a confession. He counted the bills. Too few, too thin. The math was merciless. Resuri rent, groceries surititin, Lily's school supplies. He rubbed his face, the stubble rough against his palms, and glanced down the hall where Lily's nightlight cast a soft glow. She slept clutching her tattered stuffed bear, its seams stitched and restitched by his clumsy hands. There was no choice to make. He'd find a way. Fatherhood, he'd learned, was less about having answers and more about refusing to give up. The harvest fair dawned bright and crisp, the kind of autumn day that smelled of cider and possibility. Lily bounced beside Jack, her patched denim jacket flapping as she tugged him through the bustling town square. Booths overflowed with quilts, jam surratin, and kettle corn, and the air hummed with laughter and banjo music. Jack kept a firm grip on Lily's hand, her excitement infectious despite the calculations ticking in his mind. They paused at a face painting booth, where Lily emerged with a glittering butterfly on her cheek, her grin brighter than the sun. Jack paid the $2 with a quiet nod, swallowing the pang of what it cost. The fair's heart was the shooting range, a wide field framed by a wooden arch draped in red, white, and blue bunting. A banner overhead read, Cedar Hollow Marksman Challenge. $500 prize. Lily's eyes sparkled as she pointed. Daddy turns. You should try. You were a soldier, right? I bet you're the best. Jack chuckled, the sound rough but warm. That was a long time ago. Peanut. Her face fell, but she pressed. You're still awesome. He squeezed her hand, steering her to the sidelines. Let's just watch. Okay, Tianam. The crowd was thick with flannel-clad men, their boasts louder than the pop of rifles. At the center was Travis Boone, a local welder with a barrel chest and a smirk that grated like sandpaper. Travis thrived on attention, his laugh booming as he slapped backs and flirted with passers-by. When he spotted Jack, his eyes narrowed, and his grin turned sharp. "Well, look who's here," he called, loud enough for heads to turn. "Cedar Hollow's war hero. Come to show us up, or you just here for the free popcorn." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Low and cruel, Lily stiffened, her small hand tightening in Jack's. He felt the heat of humiliation crawl up his neck, but kept his face blank. Tucking Lily closer. "Ignore him," he murmured, his voice steady for her sake. He had nothing to prove to Travis or anyone else. The only eyes that mattered were Lily's, and in them, he was already enough. But Lily wasn't watching Travis. She was watching Jack, her faith in him unshakable. "You could win, Daddy, Abram," she whispered, her voice fierce with belief. Before he could respond, a woman approached, her boots crunching on the gravel. Sarah Tillman, the range's new manager, held a clipboard and wore a smile that felt like a handshake. Her auburn hair was tied back, and her eyes held a warmth that didn't patronize. "You two signing up, some?" she asked, glancing between them. Jack opened his mouth to decline, but Lily blurted, "Yes. My daddy's a soldier. He's amazing." Sarah laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "That's a glowing review." She leaned closer to Jack, her voice low. "No pressure, but it'd mean something to see a good man step up. Sometimes it's about more than the target." Her words weren't pushy, just an invitation. And Jack felt something stir, a flicker of courage he hadn't touched in years. He looked at Lily, her face alight with hope, and nodded. "All right, Peanut. Let's do this." Sarah handed him a form, her smile knowing. "You're gonna surprise some folks today. Jack Harper." The range buzzed under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Jack adjusted the borrowed rifle, its weight familiar yet foreign, like a friend he hadn't seen in a decade. His hands, rough from years of fixing pipes and hammering nails, remembered the motions. Check the sights, feel the balance. Lily stood at the railing, bouncing on her toes, waving each time he glanced her way. Her belief was a shield against the crowd's skeptical stares. Travis's voice cut through the noise, sharp and mocking. "What's this, charity case thinks he's a sharpshooter?" More laughter. Bolder now. Jack's ears burned, but he kept his focus. He'd faced worse than taunts, deserts, gunfire, hospital rooms. Emern. This was nothing. The announcer's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. "Next up, Jack Harper. 3 shots, 50 yards. Standing position." The applause was thin, laced with sarcasm. Jack stepped to the line, planting his boots in the dirt. The target stood stark against the green field, red bullseyes glaring like challenges. He shut out the crowd, the jeers, the weight of his own doubts. There was only the rifle, the target, and the rhythm he'd learned long ago. "Breathe, Surminemanum. There are the one and three. A spot containing wine. Squeeze, Sursun." The first shot cracked through the air, sharp and clean. A distant clink followed, direct hit. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a few genuine claps. Jack didn't flinch. He chambered the second round, fired, and heard another clink. The spotter's voice rose, excited. Another hit. The crowd shifted, leaning forward, Travis's smirk faltering. The third shot was different. It wasn't just about skill, it was about Lily. About proving her faith wasn't misplaced. Jack's hands were steady, but his heart raced. A drumbeat of hope and fear. He aimed, exhaled, and fired. The shot split the silence like thunder. A pause. Then the spotter shouted, "Center bullseye. Perfect shot." The crowd erupted, cheers, whistles, applause swelling like a tide. Lily screamed his name, her voice piercing the noise. Jack lowered the rifle, a smile breaking across his face, raw and unguarded. The announcer stammered, "Folks, that's a tie for the Cedar Hollow record. 3 perfect shots." Sarah clapped, her eyes shining with pride. Travis muttered something and stormed off, but Jack didn't care. He knelt as Lily barreled into his arms, her hug fierce and warm. "You did it, Daddy. I knew you would." He buried his face in her hair, whispering, "Thanks for believing, Peanut." That moment, her trust, was worth more than any prize. The fair wound down as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. Jack and Lily sat on a bench, her arms wrapped around the silver trophy she refused to let go. Across the field, Sarah was packing up the scoreboard, her movements steady and sure. Jack hesitated, then told Lily, "Stay here a sec." "Okay, I gotta say thanks." She grinned, giving a thumbs up. "Tell her she's cool." Jack crossed the dirt path, his boots kicking up dust. Sarah looked up, wiping her hands on a rag. "Hey, sharpshooter," she said, her smile easy. "Town's buzzing about you." Jack shrugged. "Got lucky. I guess, She shook her head. "That wasn't luck. That was heart." Her words landed softly, and Jack felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. I didn't do it for the money," he said, glancing at Lily. "I know," Sarah replied, Fardo Warren following his gaze. "You did it for her. That's why it matters." She paused, then added, "I run a youth program here. Teens who need focus. Discipline is Sinuachaman. We could use someone like you. Just Saturdays. Paid. Think about it." Jack nodded, the offer settling like a seed in his chest. "I will." As he walked back to Lily, her grin lit the dusk, and he thought maybe, just maybe, he was ready to start building something new. The next Saturday, Jack stood at the range again, but this time, there was no crowd, no pressure, just the quiet of empty bleachers and the faint creak of targets in the breeze. Sarah had invited him for a practice session, a chance to test the setup. Jack suspected it was more than that. He hadn't fired a rifle like this since his Army days, before Clara's illness, before grief had buried the man he used to be. Sarah handed him a sleek, well-oiled rifle, its grip custom-made. "A thank you for shutting Travis up," she joked. Jack took his stance, the motions fluid, instinctive. The first shot hit dead center, the metallic ping sharp in the stillness. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Nice." The second shot was faster, just as clean. For the hurrah, one. For the third, Jack paused, his fingers brushing the bullet's smooth casing. This wasn't about records or redemption. It was about Lily, about Clara's memory, about proving to himself he still had something to give. He fired, and the shot echoed, deep and final. Sarah squinted at the target, then walked to it. Jack following. The third bullseye was split, a hole within a hole. "Impossibly precise." "Pretty, Jack," she said, her voice hushed. "You didn't just tie the record. You broke it by 2 millimeters. That's a once-in-a-lifetime shot." He shrugged, half embarrassed, but her eyes held no doubt. "You're more than you think you are," she said. "Join the program. The kids need someone like you, someone who's steady." "Huh? Who's real?" Jack exhaled. "I'll do it." The words felt like a door opening. The youth program became a rhythm, like the pulse of Cedar Hollow itself. Every other Saturday, Jack and Lily arrived at dawn, her backpack stuffed with crayons and books. The lodge, once a storage shed, was now a haven. Bookshelves, quilts, Menari Wartinrenas, old photos of sharpshooters lining the walls. Lily claimed a corner by the window, coloring while Jack worked with the teens, 5 kids, all sharp edges and guarded eyes. They reminded him of himself at that age, hungry for something to hold on to. He taught them stance, breathing, control, his voice calm but firm. "This isn't about being tough," he'd say. "It's about being steady." One boy, Ethan, with a chipped tooth and a smirk, hit the target on his 3rd try and grinned like he'd won the lottery. A girl, Mia, flinched at the rifle's kick until Jack knelt beside her and said, "It's just a noise. You're stronger than it." By noon, they'd burned through ammo and hot cocoa, and Jack felt something he hadn't in years. A purpose. Sarah watched from the sidelines, her gaze soft but piercing. After one session, as the kids left, she said, "You're a natural at this, Jack. It's not just teaching, it's giving them something to believe in." He shrugged, but her words stuck, like a splinter he didn't want to pull out. Lily adored Sarah. Sue watched Sue, chattering with her about unicorns and glitter pens. One afternoon, in West Pimpin and Antoine Sirin, Jack found them coloring together, debating whether a dragon's scale should be emerald or sapphire. The sight caught him off guard, not because it was grand, but because it was easy, like they'd always been a trio. Sarah started dropping by the house, bringing muffins or paperwork, staying for coffee or to help Lily with the school project. Her presence wasn't loud or forced, it was steady, like a river carving a path through stone. One evening, as Jack stirred chili on the stove, Lily asked, "Can Miss Sarah come to the winter festival with us?" Come with us. The question hit like a rogue wave. Not because it was wrong, but because it felt so right. Jack's chest tightened, not with fear, but with the ache of wanting something he hadn't dared name. "I'll ask," he said, his voice rough. The next day, after a session, he caught Sarah by her truck. "Lily wants you to come to the winter festival. With us?" Her eyes softened. "You sure no? He nodded. "She's sure. And I trust her." Sarah smiled. "A quiet promise. I'd love to." The festival was a blur of lights and laughter. Lily racing between booths with a paper crown and a candy cane. Sarah seamlessly, laughing when Jack tripped over a hay bale. Clapping as Lily twirled to a fiddle tune. Under the stars, as they dismantled decorations, Sarah asked, "Do stars ever look sad to you?" Jack tilted his head. She nodded, like they see everything. Love. Loss, but can't change it. He thought for a moment. "I think they're patient, waiting for us to stop being afraid." Her smile was faint but real. "Maybe that's what you're doing, Jack. Saying what you mean." He exhaled, the words spilling out. "I've spent years surviving grief, guilt, being what Lily needs. But lately, I want more. Not big things. Just mornings where I don't feel like I'm failing. Nights where I can sit with someone and not hide." Sarah's voice was soft. "What do you think she'd see if you didn't hide?" He met her gaze. "A man who's still broken, but trying for Lily. For me," she stepped closer. "What if she doesn't need you to be whole?" The air shifted, and Jack felt a crack in the wall he'd built around his heart. "That's what scares me most," he admitted. They stood there, the night alive with possibility. Her hand brushing his, a quiet vow. Winter crept in, soft and silver, frost kissing the grass. Jack was locking the range shed one morning when he saw Travis Boone arguing with a man in a press badge. Sarah stood between them, her voice sharp. As Jack approached, Travis grinned, venomous Mom. "Here's the hero himself. Varvet. Tragic past makes a hell of a story, don't it?" The reporter turned. "Jack Harper. I'm with the Gazette. We're doing a piece on veterans. Your record at the fair caught our eye. And your name came up in a report from Afghanistan." Jack's blood froze. "It's not classified." He snapped. Sarah stepped forward. "This isn't the time." But Jack's eyes locked on her. "You knew he was coming." She flinched. "I didn't know when." "He called last week. I didn't want to worry you." Betrayal stung, sharp and cold. "You said I didn't have to prove anything," he said, voice low. "You don't, she insisted. But he was already walking away. For days, Jack was a ghost, mechanical, distant. He taught the youth class, packed Lily's lunches, fixed leaks, but his heart was locked tight. Lily noticed, her voice small as they folded laundry. "Did you and Miss Sarah fight?" He sighed. "Grown-ups mess up sometimes." She studied him. "Are you going to fix it?" He didn't answer. On Thursday, Sarah appeared at his door, holding a folder. "I killed the story," she said. "No quotes, no names." Nerfrifimins. Jack leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Damage is done." She stepped closer. "I made a mistake, Jack." "Not a betrayal. I thought a story might show the world what I see. Your strength." "I was wrong." Her honesty disarmed him, but the hurt lingered. "I'm not mad you messed up." He said. "I'm mad you didn't trust me to handle it with you." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I should have." "I will win in on." "If you let me," he exhaled. "I need time." She left without pushing. Just space. What? 3 weeks later, a package arrived, brown paper. No note. Inside was a ceramic ornament. A man, the one maiden. A woman, a girl, hand in hand, with the words "not perfect, just ours." Jack's throat tightened, the knot of anger unraveling. That evening, he drove to the range. Wakito was Lily in the back, pointing at the lodge's twinkling lights. Sarah stood on the porch, scarf tight against the cold. Piman on hinom. He approached, holding the ornament. This did something, he said. Her smile was tentative. I hoped it would. He stepped closer. You were right. About sharing the weight. About choosing more than survival. I choose this, us, not because I'm fixed, but because I want to heal with you. Sarah's arms wrapped around him. Not to mend, but to hold. They stood there, breath mingling in the frost. A beginning, Christmas morning. The living room was chaos, wrapping paper. Lopsided gingerbread. Lily's laughter was shimanwan. Sarah was there, stirring cocoa. Her presence as natural as the snow outside. The tree leaned, the ornaments mismatched, and it was perfect. Not because it was flawless, but because it was theirs. Jack watched Lily and Sarah, his heart full, and understood. The best stories weren't about dodging pain. They were about learning to stand in the quiet after, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Thank you for being here today. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more. Kaminasyon on to on. See you next time.